Hello there, year 3. It is lesson 3 of your reading, and we are finally on chapter 2, Inside the Dragon Nursery. I wonder if Hiccup is going to manage to get himself a dragon baby. Let's find out, shall we? You have probably guessed by now that Hiccup was not your natural Viking hero. For a start, he didn't look like a hero. Somebody like Snotlout, for instance, he was tall, muscly, covered in skeleton tattoos, and already had the beginnings of a small moustache. This consisted of a few straggly yellow hairs clinging to his upper lip and was deeply unpleasant to look at, but still impressively manly for a boy not yet 13. Hiccup was on the small side and had the kind of face that was almost entirely unmemorable. He did have heroic hair, which was very bright red and stood up vertically, however much you tried to wet it down with seawater. But nobody ever saw that because it was hidden under his helmet most of the time. You would never have picked Hiccup out of those 10 boys to be the hero of this story. Snotlout was good at everything and a natural leader. So an explanation question, why did people never see Hiccup's hair? Dog's Breath was as tall as his father and could do amusing things like farting to the tune of the Berk National Anthem. Hiccup was just above average, absolutely average, the kind of unremarkable, skinny, freckled boy who was easy to overlook in a crowd. So when Gobber blew the horn and moved out of sight to find a comfortable rock to sit on and eat his mussel and tomato sandwich, Snotlout pushed Hiccup out of the way and took charge. "Okay, listen up, boys," he whispered in a menacing fashion. "I'm in charge, not the useless, and anybody who objects will get a knuckle sandwich from Dog's Breath the Durbrain." "Huh?" grunted Dog's Breath, pounding his fists together in happy excitement. Dog's Breath was Snotlout's chief sidekick and a great big gorilla of a boy. "Bashing, Dog's Breath, just to show what I mean." Dog's Breath was delighted to oblige. He gave Hiccup a shove that sent him sprawling head first into the snow and then ground his face in it. "Pay attention," hissed Snotlout, and the boys dragged their... So what word in there suggests that Dog's Breath is tall and big? Okay, which word in that paragraph opposite are you looking for? The boys dragged their eyes away from Dog's Breath and Hiccup and paid attention. "Rope yourselves together. The best climber should go first." "Well, that's you, of course, Snotlout," said Fishlegs. "You're the best at everything, aren't you?" Snotlout looked at Fishlegs suspiciously. It was difficult to tell whether Fishlegs was laughing at him or not because of his squint. "That's right, Fishlegs," said Snotlout. "I am." And just in case he had been laughing at him, bash him, Dog's Breath. While Dog's Breath pushed Fishlegs down to join Hiccup in the snow, Snotlout bossily ordered everyone to rope themselves together. Hiccup and Fishlegs were the last to be tied on, just behind a flushed and triumphant Dog's Breath. "Oh, brilliant," muttered Fishlegs. "I'm about to enter a cave full of man-eating reptiles tied up to 8 complete maniacs." "If we get to the cave," said Hiccup nervously, looking up at the sheer black cliff. Hiccup put the lighted torch between his teeth to leave his hands free and started climbing up after the others. It was a perilous climb. The rocks were slippy with snow and the other boys were thoroughly overexcited, making the ascent far too quickly. At one point, Clueless missed his footing and fell, luckily onto Dog's Breath, who caught him by the back of the trousers and heaved him back onto the rock again before he brought the whole of them down. When they finally made it to the mouth of the cave, Hiccup looked down briefly at the sea pounding the rocks way below and swallowed very hard. "Untie the ropes," ordered Snotlout, his eyes popping with excitement at the thought of the dangers to come. "Hiccup goes into the cave first because he is the son of the chief," he sneered. "And if there are any dragons are awake, he'll be the first to know about it. Once we're in the cave, it's every man for himself. Only the strong can belong." So which word in the top paragraph means the same as dangerous? And then what are your first impressions of Snotlout? What do you think he's really like? Although he wasn't your usual mindless thug of a hooligan, Hiccup wasn't a wimp either. Being frightened is not the same as being a coward. Maybe he was as brave as anyone else there because he went to catch a dragon despite knowing what dragons are like. And when he had climbed perilously to the mouth of the cave and had found that inside there was a long, twisty tunnel, he still went down it, despite not being too keen on long, twisty tunnels with dragons at the end of them. The tunnel was dripping and clammy. At times it was high enough for the boys to walk upright, and then it would close down into narrow, claustrophobic holes that the boys could only just squeeze through, squirming on their stomachs with the flares held in their mouths. After 10 long minutes of walking and crawling into the heart of the cliff, the stench of dragon, a salty stink of seaweed and old mackerel heads, got stronger and stronger until finally it became unbearable and the tunnel opened out into a ginormous cavern. The cavern was full of more dragons than Hiccup could ever imagine existed. So explanation here, being frightened is not the same as being a coward. What does that mean? What do you think it means? And have a look at those words in italic, because it might help you there. Despite and he still, I wonder if you could use those in your explanation. There were every possible colour and size, and they included all the species that Hiccup had heard of, and quite a few more that he hadn't. Hiccup started sweating as he looked around him at pile after pile of the animals draped over every available surface, even hanging upside down from the roof like giant bats. They were all fast asleep, and most of them were snoring in unison. This was a sound so loud and so deep that it seemed to penetrate right into Hiccup's body and vibrate around his soft insides, churning his stomach and bowels and forcing his heart to beat at the same slow dragon pulse. If one, just one of these countless creatures were to wake up, it would raise the alarm to the others and the boys would meet a horrible death. Hiccup had once seen a deer that had wandered too close to Wild Dragon Cliff, torn to pieces in a matter of minutes. Hiccup closed his eyes. "I will not think about it," he said to himself. "I will not." None of the other boys were thinking about it. Ignorance is very useful in such circumstances. Their eyes were popping with excitement as they walked. So here's your task. So imagine there was a real dragon nursery. What would it look like? What kind of toys would the babies play with? And what do you think they might eat? That sounds like it's a picture task to me. And then you could label the different parts of the picture. So if there was a real dragon nursery, what would it look like? What kind of toys would the babies play with? And what would they eat? Okay, thank you very much for listening today. And I shall see you soon.